People have been asking what I believe um, in terms of what went down in Dallas, Texas during the protests. And from what I understand, there was only one supposed shooter. The police on the ground were being targeted specifically, and they had split second decisions. And that this guy also, I believe, crossed a major street and went into another building. So the question became how to neutralize the threat quickly and fastly. And somebody actually asked me, do you think what they did was right? I said, no. I said, there are hundreds of things they could have done different. Um, but I'm not in this camp that says that this all went down the way they said it did and that this was a real person, among other things. Um, could have been, it could have been, well, any number of things, ladies and gentlemen. You and I won't know all the details. But somebody asked for my opinion what I thought about the police using actual explosives to kill a U.S. citizen. And I said weapons of war should not be used by a civilian agency, or else you're basically declaring a war on those who would, you know, do one thing or another. Oh, well, they had to protect the crowd. Well, I have a lot of theories on who should have been protecting the crowd and who shouldn't have. The police were surrounded by open carriers. They had lots of different things going on. And I still can't figure out how they agreed, even after I'm sure it went up the ladder and down the ladder 100 times or more, to use any type of an explosive ordinance against the so called gunmen. And I can't believe for a moment that these guys were even remotely given the authority to do this. Not to mention, I can't believe for any number of seconds that they had the materials necessary to, one, make a bomb capable of destroying a human being, and two, using it. And my biggest part on this, folks, isn't the split second decisions that they had to make. It was the fact that they decided to use a weapon of war against a U.S. Citizen on U.S. soil. That would be like if, Bundy Ranch had actually been bombed by a U.S. drone. That's how at war their status basically was at the time, or at least claimed to have been, even though it's all too nice and neat. Somebody said, well, what could you have done better? And I said, well, you're never going to really know that because there's 100,000 different angles which you're never going to get paperwork on. And I'm still surprised that nobody's calling for these cops to, get fired because this was a big deal. And all I know is if police had done this in my city that I had been living in at any point in time, there would probably be big problems. And basically, what I'm going to say is that anytime you step up the level of violence against anyone, basically what happens is, when you think about it, the only two things that I can think of that could have or should have been done is, from what I understand, the guy was basically trapped inside a parking garage. They had armored vehicles. They could have just ran his ass over 100 times or more. And two, the part of this that really scares the wits out of me is that basically the concealed carriers and the people carrying guns on the ground who were not police did not jump into the fight to help protect the situation and go against the so-called marksman or shooter or sniper. And I can't get that out of my head that these citizens who are carrying did not jump in and help law enforcement. There are stories all over the internet. Just pick one and start reading. But this situation did involve the use of a drone to do this. So it's very unfortunate. But how they couldn't get an armored vehicle up into that space where he was and the sniper over with an armored vehicle. I don't know how that didn't even come to pass. But the only thing that basically happens when they escalate the situation is that they now basically set the precedent for what they're legally allowed to do and what people will legally do against them next time they meet in confrontation.